Jake Harrison stared at the massive alien ship through the bridge window of the Earth defense vessel Liberty. The crystal-like structure was 3 times bigger than any human ship ever built. It hung in space above Earth like a floating mountain made of blue glass. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt his eyes to look at directly. "Sir, we're getting communication signals," reported Lieutenant Amy Clark from her station. "They're using some kind of universal language system." Jake nodded and adjusted his uniform. As the commander of Earth's newest and most advanced warship, he had trained for this moment his entire career. First contact with alien life. The moment that would change human history forever. He just never expected it to happen on a Tuesday morning while he was drinking coffee. "Put them through," he ordered. The air in the center of the bridge began to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The shimmer grew brighter and brighter until it formed a column of white light. When the light faded, an alien being stood before them. Jake had seen aliens in movies and on television, but nothing had prepared him for the real thing. The creature was tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin that looked like blue-tinted glass. He could see strange organs pulsing beneath the surface. It had 4 arms instead of 2, and its head was larger than a human head, with huge black eyes that seemed to reflect the lights of the bridge. The alien wore what looked like a robe made of silver metal that moved like liquid. Strange symbols glowed on the fabric, shifting and changing as Jake watched. The creature carried itself with the kind of dignity that came from being very important and very used to being obeyed. "Greetings, primitive inhabitants of the 3rd planet," the alien said. Its voice was pleasant, almost musical, but the words made Jake frown. The alien continued, "I am Ambassador Zixtara of the Galactic Confederation. I have traveled far to bring you an opportunity that few species ever receive." Captain Lisa Martinez stepped forward. She was Earth's lead diplomat chosen for this mission because she could speak 12 languages and had never lost her temper during negotiations, not even when dealing with politicians. "Welcome to our ship, Ambassador Zixtara. I am Captain Martinez. We are honored by your visit." The alien's 4 arms moved in what might have been a greeting. "Your species has achieved faster than light travel, which means you have reached the point where we can consider offering you membership in our great confederation." Admiral Ryan Cooper, a man who had spent 40 years in Earth's military, raised an eyebrow. "Membership? What exactly does that involve?" Zixara waved one of her arms, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. The display showed dozens of different alien species working together on massive space stations, trading goods between beautiful planets and conducting scientific experiments that boggled the human mind. "The Confederation is made up of over 1,000 civilized worlds," Zixtara explained. "We have achieved perfect peace and harmony among all member species. There is no war, no conflict, no violence of any kind. We share technology, knowledge, and resources freely. It is paradise." The humans exchanged glances. Jake noticed that Admiral Cooper's jaw was getting tight, which usually meant the old soldier was thinking hard about something he didn't like. "That sounds wonderful," Captain Martinez said carefully. "What would we need to do to qualify for membership?" "The requirements are simple," Zixtara replied. "Your species must prove that it has evolved beyond the primitive behaviors that plague most young civilizations. You must show that you no longer engage in warfare, territorial disputes, or conflicts over resources. Most species naturally grow out of these behaviors as they develop the technology for space travel." The bridge fell silent. Jake could hear the quiet hum of the ship's engines and the soft beeping of various instruments. He looked around at his crew and saw the same expression on every face. It was the look people got when someone had just said something so completely wrong that they didn't know where to begin explaining. Dr. Helen Brooks, Earth's chief expert on alien life, cleared her throat. "Ambassador, I think there might be some confusion about human society." "Confusion?" Zixthara's large black eyes seemed to focus more intently on the humans. "Please explain." Dr. Brooks looked uncomfortable. "Well, humans haven't exactly evolved beyond warfare. We actually Still fight quite a lot. Fight? The alien skin seemed to pulse with a different color. Surely you mean sports competitions or friendly contests? No, Admiral Cooper said bluntly. She means war, real war. With guns and bombs and people dying. Zixthara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her musical voice had a note of confusion. This is not possible. No species capable of building faster-than-light ships maintains active warfare. It is scientifically impossible. The resources required for space travel cannot be developed by a species that wastes energy on conflict. Colonel Danny Foster, the ship's security chief, stepped forward. Ma'am, with respect, we've been fighting wars continuously for about 5,000 years. We just got good at doing it efficiently. Efficiently? Zixthara repeated. Yes, ma'am. We learned how to fight wars and build spaceships at the same time. It's called multitasking. The alien ambassador's forearms began moving in what looked like agitation. You cannot be serious. Show me your planet's current status. Dr. Brooks activated another holographic display. This one showed Earth from space, with various colored dots marking different locations. The red dots show current active conflicts. She explained. Yellow dots are areas of high tension that might become conflicts soon. Green dots are places that are peaceful right now. Zixthara stared at the display. There were a lot more red and yellow dots than green ones. This cannot be accurate. Your data must be corrupted. Updated as of this morning, Dr. Brooks confirmed. 17 active wars, 32 border disputes, and about 50 different groups threatening to start fights with each other over various disagreements. What do you fight about? Zixthara asked weakly. Captain Martinez began counting on her fingers. Territory, resources, religion, politics, historical grudges, trade routes, water rights, who gets to be in charge of what? And sometimes just because we don't like each other very much. But why? The alien seemed genuinely distressed. Why do you not simply talk through your differences like civilized beings? Jake couldn't help but smile. We do talk, Ambassador. We talk a lot. But sometimes talking doesn't work and then we fight. It's just how humans solve problems. This is barbaric, Zixthara said. This is exactly the kind of primitive behavior that civilized species must abandon. Admiral Cooper crossed his arms. Maybe, but it's also the reason we're standing here talking to you instead of cowering in caves. I do not understand. Competition makes us stronger, Admiral Cooper explained. Fighting each other taught us how to build better weapons, better defenses, better strategies. We got so good at war that we accidentally figured out how to travel between stars. Zixthara's skin was now pulsing through several different colors. You developed space travel as a byproduct of military research? Pretty much, Jake confirmed. Turns out that rocket engines work just as well for exploring space as they do for delivering warheads to your enemies. The alien ambassador stood very still for a long time. Finally, she spoke in a voice that seemed much less confident than before. I believe I need to consult with my superiors about this situation. This is unprecedented. Take your time, Captain Martinez said politely. We'll be right here. As Zixthara began to shimmer with the same light that had brought her to the ship, she paused. One question before I go. How many other species like yourselves exist in this galaxy? The humans looked at each other and shrugged. As far as we know, Jake said, just us. The alien ambassador disappeared in a flash of light, leaving behind a group of humans, who had just discovered that they might be the only warlike species in a galaxy full of pacifists. Jake turned to Admiral Cooper. Sir, is it just me, or does that seem like useful information? The old admiral smiled grimly. Very useful, Commander. Very useful indeed. Dr. Helen Brooks sat across from Ambassador Zixthara in the ship's conference room. 7 days had passed since their first meeting, and the alien diplomat had spent most of that time asking questions about human civilization. Each answer seemed to make her more confused and worried. The conference room had been modified to accommodate their guest. The lights were dimmed to a soft blue glow that Zixthara found comfortable, and the temperature had been lowered to match her preferences. Despite these efforts to make her comfortable, the ambassador's translucent skin kept shifting colors, and what Dr. Brooks had learned were signs of distress. "Let me make certain I understand correctly," Zixtara said, her four hands moving nervously. "Your planet is divided into 195 separate territorial units, and each one maintains its own military force? We call them countries," Dr. Brooks explained patiently. "And yes, most of them have armies, navies, and air forces. Some have space forces too now. But surely these military units are ceremonial for parades and historical displays?" Colonel Danny Foster, who had been invited to help explain military concepts, shook his head. "No, ma'am, active combat forces. Fully equipped and trained for warfare. We rotate troops through combat zones regularly to keep their skills sharp." Zixtara's translator device remained silent for several seconds, apparently struggling to process this information. "This cannot be accurate. No species capable of achieving interstellar travel maintains active military forces. It is evolutionarily impossible." "Why impossible?" Dr. Brooks asked. "Because warfare requires resources that should be used for technological advancement. A species cannot develop space travel while wasting energy on conflict. The mathematics do not work." General Patricia Stone entered the conference room carrying a tablet computer. She was a stern woman with gray hair and scars on her hands from her years as a combat soldier before becoming a general. "Ambassador, I have those statistics you requested about Earth's military spending." She activated the tablet, and a holographic display appeared showing charts and numbers. "Last year, the nations of Earth spent approximately $2 trillion on military equipment, training, and operations." Zixtara stared at the numbers. $2 trillion of your currency units? That's just the official budgets, General Stone continued. It doesn't include black projects, private military contractors, or research and development programs that we keep secret from each other. You keep military secrets from your own species? "Oh, yes," Colonel Foster said cheerfully. "We spy on each other constantly. Every major country has intelligence agencies dedicated to stealing military secrets from other countries. Even your allies?" "Especially our allies," General Stone replied. "You never know when today's friend might become tomorrow's enemy." The alien ambassador's skin had turned a very dark shade of blue. "Show me your current conflicts." Dr. Brooks activated the main display screen. A map of Earth appeared, covered with colored dots and symbols. The red areas are active war zones. Yellow areas are regions with high tension or recent violence. Orange areas are places where we expect trouble soon. Zixtara studied the map for a long time. More than half of Earth's continents had red, yellow, or orange markings. "How many humans are currently engaged in combat?" "Active combat right now, maybe 50,000, General Stone estimated. But we have about 70 million people in various military forces worldwide. 70 million soldiers? That's just full-time military," Colonel Foster added. "Most countries also have reserves, National Guard units, and civilian militia groups. If you count everyone with military training who could be called up for war, you're looking at maybe 300 million people." 300 million warriors, Zixtara whispered. "Out of how many total humans?" "About 8 billion, Dr. Brooks said. The ambassador was quiet for several minutes, apparently doing calculations. "You maintain a warrior class that represents nearly 4% of your total population?" "More or less," General Stone confirmed. "Though really, most of our civilian population has some kind of combat training too. We teach basic military skills in schools, and many people learn to fight as a hobby." "A hobby?" "Sports fighting, hunting, target shooting, martial arts," Colonel Foster listed. "Humans like to compete in combat-related activities for fun." "You fight for entertainment?" "Sometimes. We also have military history channels on television, strategy games, and we make movies about famous battles. War is a big part of our culture." Zixtara's forearms were trembling slightly. "What do you fight about? Surely not resources, since you have achieved space travel?" Dr. Brooks pulled up another display. Actually, most of our current conflicts are about resources. Oil, water, rare earth minerals, farmland, fishing rights. But you have the technology to harvest resources from asteroids and other planets. We're working on that, General Stone said, but it's easier to take resources from each other than to mine them in space. At least for now, you choose to fight rather than cooperate? We do both, Colonel Foster explained. We cooperate with some people and fight with others. Sometimes we cooperate and fight with the same people, just at different times. This is insane, Zixtara said. How do you accomplish anything with this constant warfare? Actually, war helps us accomplish things faster, Dr. Brooks said. Competition drives innovation. When countries fight each other, they develop new technologies. Very quickly. Give me an example, General Stone smiled. World War II lasted 6 years. During that time, humans invented radar, jet engines, nuclear power, early computers, advanced medical techniques, and dozens of other technologies that normally would have taken decades to develop. You accelerated technological development. Through warfare? Accidentally, yes. When your survival depends on having better weapons than your enemy, you get very creative very quickly. Zixtara stood up and began pacing around the room, her forearms moving in agitated gestures. This explains much about your species, but it creates a significant problem. What kind of problem? Dr. Brooks asked. The Galactic Confederation has protocols for species like yours. In 10,000 years of expansion across the galaxy, we have encountered 12 other species that maintained warfare capabilities after achieving space travel. What happened to them? 7 destroyed themselves within a century of achieving interstellar flight. 3 were contained within their home systems until they evolved beyond warfare. 2 were relocated to supervised worlds where they could not threaten civilized species. The room fell silent. Finally, General Stone spoke. And if we refuse to be contained or relocated? Then the Confederation Council will vote on more direct measures, Zixtara said quietly, for the protection of the galaxy's peaceful civilizations. More direct measures, Colonel Foster repeated. Meaning? Meaning your species would be prevented from spreading beyond this solar system, permanently. That sounds like a threat. General Stone observed, it is not a threat, it is policy. Warlike species cannot be allowed to spread through the galaxy. They disrupt the peace that has taken thousands of years to establish. Dr. Brooks leaned forward. Ambassador, what if we told you that humans don't want to disrupt your peace? What if we just want to be left alone to live our own way? That is not possible. Aggressive species always expand. It is their nature. You will eventually try to conquer other worlds, and when you do, you will bring warfare back to species that have evolved beyond it. So our choices are to change our fundamental nature or be destroyed, General Stone asked. Those are the only options the Confederation has ever needed to offer, Zixtara confirmed. The 3 humans looked at each other. Colonel Foster was the first to smile. Then General Stone, finally, Dr. Brooks began to grin as well. Ambassador, Dr. Brooks said, I think you need to understand something important about humans. We really don't like ultimatums. This is not an ultimatum. This is reality. Maybe, General Stone said, standing up slowly. But here's another reality for you to consider. Humans have been receiving ultimatums from other humans for thousands of years. Surrender or die, submit or be destroyed. Accept our terms or face annihilation. And? Zixtara asked. And we're still here, Colonel Foster said. Which should tell you something about how we respond to people who try to force us to do things we don't want to do. Zixtara's skin shifted to an even darker blue. You would fight the entire Galactic Confederation? If we had to, Dr. Brooks said simply. It's just who we are. The ambassador stared at them for a long moment. You would choose extinction over evolution? We choose to remain human, General Stone replied. Whatever the cost. For the first time since arriving, Ambassador Zixtara looked genuinely frightened. I must report this to the Confederation Council immediately. You do that? Colonel Foster said pleasantly. An ambassador? When you're explaining this to your bosses, you might want to mention that humans have never been very good at losing gracefully. As Zixtara began to shimmer with teleportation energy, she paused. What does that mean? It means, General Stone said with a cold smile, that if you try to destroy us, we'll make sure you remember the experience for a very long time. The alien ambassador disappeared, leaving behind 3 humans who had just declared war on a galactic empire without even consulting their government. The silence that followed President Carter's last statement stretched for what felt like hours but was actually only 2 minutes. Ambassador Zixthara's translucent skin had gone through so many color changes that Dr. Brooks had stopped trying to interpret them. Finally, the alien diplomat spoke in a voice that seemed much smaller than before. I believe your translation systems are malfunctioning, Zixthara said weakly. Did you just suggest that humanity would launch military attacks against the Galactic Confederation? You heard correctly, Admiral Cooper confirmed, his voice calm and steady. You want to cage us like dangerous animals or wipe us out completely? We prefer option 3? Option 3? We come to you, President Carter said simply. General Stone, who had been quietly observing the conversation, activated a holographic display. Ambassador, we've been studying your ship's technology for the past 10 days. Very impressive engineering, but your weapon systems are interesting. Interesting how? They're designed for planetary bombardment and infrastructure destruction. Perfect tools for fighting primitives who can't shoot back. Classic weapons for bullying people who are weaker than you. Colonel Foster stepped forward with what could only be described as a cheerful grin, but not particularly effective against opponents who know how to fight back. Zixthara's forearms were now trembling. Visibly, you cannot be serious. The Confederation has 1,000,000 worlds. Our fleets span entire sectors of space. You have 1 planet and a handful of primitive vessels. True, Secretary Wells acknowledged, but let me ask you something, Ambassador. How many wars has the Confederation fought? We enforce peace across the galaxy. We maintain order through our peacekeeping forces. That's not what I asked. When was the last time the Confederation faced an enemy that wanted to destroy your entire civilization and was willing to sacrifice everything to do it? Such species do not achieve space travel. They destroy themselves first. Dr. Brooks leaned forward in her chair. Exactly. But we didn't destroy ourselves. We made it to the stars while keeping all of our aggressive instincts intact. Which should tell you something important about us. What should it tell me? That we're very, very good at staying alive when people try to kill us, Admiral Cooper explained. We've had thousands of years of practice. President Carter stood and walked to the large viewport showing the alien ship hanging in space nearby. You know what I think, Ambassador? I think your Confederation has been peaceful for so long that you've forgotten what real war looks like. Our military forces are highly trained and equipped with advanced technology. To fight who? General Stone asked. When was the last time your soldiers faced an enemy that was trying to kill them? When was the last time they had to watch their friends die? When was the last time they went into battle knowing they might not come home? Zixthara was quiet for a long moment. Our peacekeeping forces maintain order. They do not experience significant casualties. Because they only fight people who can't fight back, Colonel Foster said. That's not war. That's just bullying with fancy weapons. Your forces would be annihilated, the ambassador protested. Your primitive technology cannot compete with ours. Maybe, Secretary Wells agreed. But here's what would happen. You'd start by trying to destroy our military from orbit, right? Standard procedure for dealing with troublesome primitives. That is the most efficient approach, yes. Except we wouldn't be where you expect us to be, Admiral Cooper said. By the time your fleets arrive, every human military unit will have scattered, gone underground, hidden among the civilian population, made it impossible for you to find us without, killing millions of innocent people. And your Confederation doesn't like killing civilians, does it? Dr. Brooks asked. You're too civilized for that. We would not target non-combatants, Zixthara confirmed. Which means you'd have to send ground forces to hunt us down, General Stone continued. Your peaceful soldiers would have to come down to our planet and try to find us in our own cities, our own forests, our own mountains, where we know every hiding place and every escape route, Colonel Foster added, and where we'd be waiting for them. President Carter turned back to face the ambassador. Tell me something, Zixtara. How many of your soldiers have killed someone face to face? How many have seen their squad mates blown apart by explosives? How many have spent weeks hiding in ruins, eating whatever they could find, waiting for a chance to strike back? None, she whispered. Every human soldier has trained for exactly that kind of fighting, Secretary Wells said. We call it urban warfare, and we've been perfecting it for centuries. But eventually you would be defeated, Zixtara insisted. Eventually, yes, Admiral Cooper agreed. But by then, your nice peaceful confederation would have learned what war really costs. Your soldiers would start having nightmares. Your civilians would demand to know why their children were dying for the sake of containing some distant primitive species. And then, President Carter said, returning to his seat, we'd start bringing the war to you. What do you mean? General Stone smiled coldly. We mean that humans don't fight defensively, Ambassador. When someone attacks us, we attack back. We find ways to hurt our enemies where they least expect it. You could never reach our worlds. Couldn't. We? Dr. Brooks asked. We've already learned a lot about your technology just from studying your ship. Give us a few months of war, and we'll figure out how to steal your own ships and use them against you. Impossible. Is it? Colonel Foster challenged. How good is your computer security? How well do you protect your ship designs? How carefully? Do you guard your military communications? We have never needed extensive security measures. The Confederation is peaceful. Which means you're vulnerable, Secretary Wells observed. You've never had to protect yourselves from people who specialize in breaking things and stealing secrets. Even if you somehow acquired our technology, you lack the industrial capacity to build ships. We'd steal those too, Admiral Cooper said simply. Or better yet, we'd turn your own ships against you. Humans are very good at convincing people to change sides. Our crews are loyal to the Confederation. Your crews have never been in a real war, President Carter pointed out. They've never watched their friends die for no good reason. They've never been asked to kill civilians to maintain order. How loyal do you think they'll stay when the fighting gets ugly? Zixtara's skin had now turned a dark purple color that seemed to pulse with her breathing. You would turn our own people against us? If we had to, General Stone confirmed. That's what humans do in war. We use every weapon available, including the enemy's own weaknesses. But why? The ambassador asked desperately. Why choose this path? Why not accept containment and live peacefully within your own system? Because it's not living, Secretary Wells replied. It's existing. There's a difference. We'd rather die as free humans than live as pets in a zoo. Admiral Cooper added. President Carter leaned forward, his expression serious. Ambassador, let me explain something about human nature. We don't just fight when we're attacked. We fight. When we're threatened, we fight. When we're insulted, we fight. When someone tells us we can't do something. It's not rational, it's just who we are. And right now, Dr. Brooks said quietly, your Confederation is doing all three of those things at once. You are condemning your entire species to extinction, Zixtara said. Maybe, President Carter acknowledged. But we'll make sure that your Confederation remembers us for a very long time. Every time one of your peaceful worlds looks up at the stars, they'll wonder if there might be other humans out there somewhere. Other species like us that haven't been found yet. Will become your worst nightmare, Colonel Foster said cheerfully. The thing that goes bump in the night. The reason your children are afraid of the dark. And all because you tried to put U.S. in a cage, General Stone added. The alien ambassador stood up slowly, all four of her arms shaking. I must return to my ship and contact the Council immediately. This conversation has taken a direction that I was not prepared for. Take your time, President Carter said politely. We'll be right here. One question before you go, Secretary Wells said. If your confederation is so powerful and so peaceful, why are you so afraid of one little planet full of primitives? Zixthara paused at the edge of the teleportation field. Because deep down, we know that you are not really primitives at all. You are something much more dangerous. What's that? Admiral Cooper asked. You are what we used to be, before we forgot how to fight. The ambassador disappeared in a flash of light, leaving behind a room full of humans who had just turned the tables on a galactic empire by being exactly what they had always been: too stubborn to surrender, too dangerous to ignore, and too angry to forgive. Dr. Brooks looked around the table. Did we just declare war on the entire galaxy? Probably, President Carter replied. But at least we did it with style. And somehow that made them all feel better about the possibility of human extinction. 3 days had passed since Ambassador Zixthara's last meeting with the human military officers. During that time, she had remained in her quarters aboard the Liberty, apparently communicating with her superiors in the Galactic Confederation. The humans had given her privacy, but they had also been making preparations of their own. President William Carter arrived aboard the Liberty via shuttle from Earth. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes, the kind of person who had spent years making difficult decisions. Behind him came Secretary of Defense Karen Wells, a sharp-eyed woman who had served in 3 different wars before entering politics. They met Ambassador Zixthara in the ship's main conference room. The alien diplomat looked even more distressed than before. Her translucent blue skin was now showing patches of darker colors that shifted and moved like storm clouds. President Carter, Zixthara began, I have spent considerable time discussing your species with the Confederation Council. We have reached some conclusions about the situation. President Carter sat down across from her, folding his hands on the table. I'm listening. Your species presents a unique challenge in the history of galactic expansion. In 10,000 years, the Confederation has never encountered a spacefaring race that maintains such aggressive tendencies while also demonstrating advanced technological capabilities. Is that good or bad? Secretary Wells asked. It is unprecedented, Zixthara replied. The Council has reviewed all available data about human civilization. Your capacity for violence, combined with your technological advancement, represents a significant threat to galactic stability. Admiral Cooper, who had been present for the meeting, leaned back in his chair. Ambassador, I appreciate your concern, but this is simply who we are. We're not going to change human nature just to make your organization comfortable. The Confederation has established protocols for species like yours, Zixthara continued, ignoring the interruption. We have decided to implement a containment perimeter around your solar system. A what? President Carter asked. A defensive barrier. Nothing gets in or out. Your species will be confined to this system until you either evolve beyond warfare or destroy yourselves. Our calculations suggest you have approximately 2 to 3 centuries before self-annihilation becomes statistically inevitable. The room fell silent. Secretary Wells was the first to speak. You're talking about building a prison around our entire star system. It is a protective measure for the benefit of all civilized worlds. President Carter stood slowly and walked to the viewport that showed Earth hanging in space below them. And if we refuse to accept this containment, then the Confederation Council will vote on more direct intervention. The options include forced relocation of your population to supervised worlds, or in extreme cases, complete sterilization of your planet to prevent the spread of aggressive genetics. Sterilization, Admiral Cooper repeated quietly. You mean genocide? We prefer the term threat elimination. It would be conducted humanely and quickly. President Carter turned around, and his expression was colder than anyone in the room had ever seen it. Ambassador, I think you misunderstand something fundamental about humanity. We don't respond well to ultimatums. This is not an ultimatum. This is the reality of your situation. Your species is a threat to galactic peace. Is it? President Carter asked. Or are you just afraid of us? Zixthara's 4 arms moved in what they had learned was a gesture of confusion. Afraid? The Confederation controls 1,000,000 worlds and possesses fleets that span entire sectors of the galaxy. What possible reason could we have to fear one? Primitive planet? Secretary Wells smiled thinly. Because deep down, we're not as primitive as you'd like to believe. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Maybe, Admiral Cooper acknowledged. But tell me something, Ambassador. When was the last time the Confederation fought a real war? We maintain peace. We have peacekeeping forces that enforce order. That's not what I asked. When was the last time your people faced an enemy that wanted to kill every single one of you and was willing to die trying to do it? Zixthara was quiet for a moment. Such species do not survive to achieve spaceflight. Exactly, President, Carter said, turning back to face her. But we did. Which should tell you something about us that your statistics and calculations are missing. What are you suggesting? Dr. Brooks, who had been silent until now, leaned forward. Ambassador, has the Confederation ever fought against an opponent that fought back? Really fought back with everything they had? Our peacekeeping forces are highly trained and equipped with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. But they've never fought anyone who was trying to kill them, Secretary Wells observed. They've only fought primitives who couldn't match their technology. What is your point? President Carter walked back to the table and sat down. My point, Ambassador, is that your Confederation is soft. 1,000,000 worlds of beings who have forgotten what it means to fight for survival. You've had peace for so long that you've forgotten what war actually looks like. You would be completely destroyed, Zixthara protested. Your primitive weapons cannot stand against our technology. Maybe, Admiral Cooper said. But here's what I think would happen. You'd start by trying to destroy our military forces from orbit. Standard procedure for dealing with primitives, right? That is the most efficient method, yes. Except we wouldn't fight you the way primitives fight. We wouldn't line up our armies for you to shoot at. We'd disappear, go underground, hide among our civilian population. Make it impossible for you to tell who was a threat and who wasn't. Guerrilla warfare, Secretary Wells added. Something humans have been perfecting for thousands of years. So then you'd have to come down to the planet to find us, Dr. Brooks continued. Send your peacekeeping forces to hunt us in our own cities, our own forests, our own mountains, where we know every hiding place, every escape route, every weakness. In your equipment, Admiral Cooper said. And we'd be waiting for you. President Carter leaned forward. Tell me, Ambassador, how many casualties has your Confederation's military suffered in the last century? Casualties? Dead soldiers. How many of your people have died in combat? Zixthara was quiet for a long moment. The Confederation has not suffered significant military losses in over 3,000 years. And how many of your soldiers have experienced fighting people who want to kill them? None, she admitted quietly. We've been killing each other for fun and profit for our entire recorded history, Secretary Wells said. Every human soldier has trained to fight people who are trying to kill them. Every human civilian knows what death looks like. Every human child grows up hearing stories about war. You think this gives you an advantage? I think, President Carter said, that your peacekeeping forces would break the first time they saw real combat. The first time their friends started dying around them. The first time they realized that the enemy wasn't going to surrender just because you had better weapons. And then what? Zixthara asked. Then you'd get angry, Admiral Cooper said. You'd decide to make an example of us. Start bombing our cities, killing our civilians, trying to terrorize us into submission, which would only make us fight harder, Dr. Brooks added. Because that's what humans do when you hurt our families. You would all die eventually, Zixthara insisted. Probably, President Carter agreed. But first we'd teach your entire Confederation what fear feels like. For the first time in thousands of years, your people would go to sleep wondering if they'd wake up in the morning. You would attack civilian targets. We'd attack whatever targets would hurt you the most, Secretary Wells said bluntly. That's how humans fight. We don't follow your rules. We don't fight fair. We fight to win, and if we can't win, we fight to make you regret starting the fight. Zixthara's skin had shifted to a deep purple color. You would choose mutual destruction over peaceful coexistence? You're not offering peaceful coexistence, President Carter replied. You're offering slavery disguised as protection. There's a difference, but the mathematics are clear. You cannot win against the Confederation. Doesn't matter, Admiral. Cooper said. We'd make the cost of victory higher than you're willing to pay. That's how humans fight. We don't fight to win battles. We fight to make our enemies wish they'd never heard of us. The alien ambassador stood up, all four of her arms trembling. I must report this conversation to the Council immediately. You. Do that, President Carter said. And Ambassador? When you're explaining this to your council, you might want to mention something else. What? We haven't even started making preparations yet. Everything we've told you about how we'd fight. That's just what we'd do without any planning. Give us time to get ready, and we'll show you things that will give your entire Confederation nightmares. As Zixthara began to shimmer with teleportation energy, she paused. What could you possibly do that would threaten a galactic civilization? President. Carter smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Why don't you ask us again after you've made your decision about that containment field? The ambassador disappeared, leaving behind a room full of humans who had just declared war on the galaxy. Secretary Wells looked around the table. Did we just make the biggest mistake in human history? Maybe, President Carter replied. Ambassador Zixthara had been gone for 6 hours. During that time, the human delegation had remained in the conference room discussing what would happen next. They all knew that the ambassador was likely reporting their conversation to the Confederation Council, and that the Council would need to make a decision about how to handle the human problem. When the familiar shimmer of teleportation energy began to fill the room, everyone fell silent. Zixthara materialized slowly, as if the process was taking more effort than usual. Her translucent skin was now a pale green color that none of the humans had seen before. President Carter, she began, her musical voice sounding tired. I have spent considerable time in discussion with the Confederation Council about our conversation. President Carter nodded. And what did they decide? They are disturbed by the information I have provided them. The Council has never encountered a species that responded to containment protocols with threats of retaliation. Not threats. Admiral Cooper corrected. Promises. Zixthara's forearms moved in what they had learned was a gesture of acknowledgement. Yes, the Council understands the difference. This has created a significant problem for our standard procedures. Secretary Wells leaned forward. What kind of problem? The Confederation has maintained peace for over 3,000 years through a simple principle: overwhelming technological superiority. When we encounter aggressive species, we either contain them or eliminate them before they can spread their warfare to other worlds. This has always been sufficient. But, Dr. Brooks prompted, your species has made us realize something we had not considered. We have become very good at defeating primitives who cannot effectively fight back. We have no experience with opponents who specialize in asymmetric warfare. General Stone raised an eyebrow. Asymmetric warfare? Fighting. In ways that negate technological advantages? Using the enemy's strengths against them. Turning their own people against them. The Council has been studying your military history and they find it very disturbing. Why disturbing? Colonel Foster asked. Because you always find ways to win. Even when you should lose. Your species has a documented history of defeating technologically superior opponents through tactics that civilized species would never consider. President Carter smiled grimly. And that worries them? It terrifies them, Zixthara admitted. The Council has calculated the probable outcome of a war between the Confederation and humanity. Even though you would eventually be defeated, the cost would be enormous. Millions of our people would die. Dozens of worlds would be devastated. The peace that has defined our civilization for millennia would be shattered. Good, Secretary Wells said bluntly. Maybe your people need to remember what peace actually costs. Perhaps, the ambassador agreed quietly. But that realization has led the Council to consider alternative approaches to the human problem, such as. Admiral Cooper asked. Zixtara was quiet for a long moment, apparently struggling with something. Finally, she spoke. The Council wishes to propose something that has never been attempted in the history of the Confederation. We're listening, President Carter said. An alliance. The room fell silent. Dr. Brooks was the first to speak. An alliance, not membership in the Confederation? Membership would require your species to abandon warfare and submit to Confederation authority. The Council now understands that this is impossible for humans. You would fight to extinction rather than surrender your independence. Damn right we would, General Stone said. So instead they propose a partnership. Humanity would remain completely independent, maintaining your own government, your own military, and your own way of life. In exchange, you would provide certain specialized services to the Confederation when needed. What kind of services? Secretary Wells asked suspiciously. Military consultation, tactical analysis, and when necessary, direct military intervention in situations that cannot be resolved through peaceful means. The humans looked at each other in surprise. Colonel Foster was the first to understand. You want us to be your attack dogs? We prefer the term military specialists, Zixtara said carefully. The Confederation has encountered several problems in recent years that our peacekeeping forces have been unable to resolve effectively. What kind of problems? President Carter asked. 3 systems on the Outer Rim have developed aggressive tendencies similar to your own. Our attempts at containment have failed, and our peacekeeping forces have suffered casualties trying to maintain order. There is also a species called the Devourers that has been expanding into Confederation space, consuming entire worlds and showing no interest in negotiation. And you want us to deal with them, Admiral Cooper said. The Council believes that a species with your particular expertise in warfare might be more effective at resolving these situations than our traditional approaches. Dr. Brooks leaned back in her chair. Let me get this straight. You came here to contain or destroy us because we're too violent, and now you want to hire us because we're violent. The irony is not lost on the Council, Zixtara admitted. But practical considerations have overcome philosophical objections. What would we get out of this arrangement? Secretary Wells asked. Technology sharing. Access to Confederation. Scientific knowledge. Trade opportunities with peaceful worlds. Protection from external threats that might emerge in the future. And most importantly, the guarantee that humanity will never be contained or relocated. And in return we do your dirty work, General Stone observed. You would handle situations that require your unique approach to problem solving. The ambassador corrected. President Carter stood and walked to the viewport again. You realize that once we start helping you with your military problems, other species in the galaxy are going to know that humans exist? Yes, and they're going to be afraid of us, probably. Good, he said, turning back to face her. Fear breeds respect. Respect leads to peace. At least for the people smart enough not to start fights they can't finish. Zixtara's skin shifted to a lighter shade of green. Then you are interested in the Council's proposal? We'd need to discuss the details, Secretary Wells said. Rules of engagement, compensation, how much independence we maintain, that sort of thing. Of course. The Council is prepared to negotiate terms that respect human sovereignty while meeting Confederation needs. Admiral Cooper smiled. You know what I like about this idea? It's honest. You're not trying to change us or fix us or make us better. You're just accepting that we're good at breaking things and asking us to break the right things. The Council has concluded that attempting to change human nature would be both impossible and counterproductive, Zixtara agreed. Better to work with your instincts than against them. Dr. Brooks had been quiet during the exchange, apparently thinking. Ambassador, I have a question. What happens if we encounter other species like us? Other aggressive civilizations that refuse to submit to the Confederation? What do you mean? I mean, what if we find people who are just like humans? People who fight because that's who they are, not because they're evil or primitive, but because that's how they solve problems. Zixthara considered this. What would you recommend in such cases? We'd try to recruit them, Colonel Foster said immediately. Why fight people who could be allies instead? You would ally with other aggressive species? If they were reasonable about it, General Stone said. There's a difference between being willing to fight and being stupid about when to fight. The Council would need to consider such possibilities on a case-by-case basis, the ambassador said. President Carter returned to his seat. Ambassador, I think your council has made a smart decision. Humans don't want to conquer the galaxy. We just want to be left alone to live our own way. But if you need someone to handle problems that can't be solved with diplomacy, we're your people, because that's what humans do best, Secretary Wells added. We specialize in the problems that nice, civilized people can't solve themselves. And in return, we get to remain human, Admiral Cooper concluded. No cages, no supervision, no one telling us how to live our lives. That is the essence of the proposal, yes. Dr. Brooks smiled. You know what this means, don't you? You just turned humanity into the galaxy's immune system. When something dangerous threatens the peace, you call us in to eliminate the infection. A crude but accurate analogy, Zixthara agreed. I like it, Colonel Foster said cheerfully. It has a nice ring to it. Humanity, the galaxy's cure for stupidity. President Carter extended his hand toward the ambassador. Ambassador Zixthara, on behalf of humanity, I accept the Confederation's proposal. We look forward to a long and productive partnership. The alien diplomat looked at his extended hand for a moment, then reached out with one of her 4 arms to clasp it. I believe this arrangement will benefit both our peoples, President Carter. The galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place. For the people who deserve it, Secretary Wells said with a cold smile as they shook hands, sealing humanity's entry into galactic politics. Every person in the room understood that they had just changed the course of history, not by becoming what the galaxy wanted them to be, but by being exactly what they had always been, the people you called when peaceful solutions weren't enough.